What is going on, my peeps? It's Micah back with Versatile Productions, back with another video, day 3 and day 4 of the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. Yes, there are times that I now slip and almost call it a note phone, but I'm not mad at it, honestly, because it resembles what the Note really should have been. The entire series was just the big boy S line device. Now, I say day 3 and day 4 because this is day 4. I didn't actually get to record day 3, but my thoughts are, for the most part, the exact same going into day 4. And this is kind of like the rough draft review. This is pretty much summarizing some of my thoughts about things that I have noticed, experienced, liked, disliked with the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, and for the most part, what we should see from their phones going forward, regardless of whether or not it's an Ultra device. And the first thing I've been leading with in my previous videos, in this video here, is battery life. The thickness of this phone complements battery life, and the reason why phones need to go back to being thick boys like this. It's interesting to see that Samsung lessened the amount of battery in the S22 and S22 Plus as opposed to the S21 and S21 Plus by a few hundred milliamp hours. After experiencing 5,000 milliamps on this S22 Ultra that features more activities, that has an S Pen that does seep off the battery, which is why for some people, when you do a battery test between the S21 and the S22 Ultra, the battery life, goodness gracious, that's my Z Flip 3. The battery life on the S22 Ultra may come in slightly lower than the S21 Ultra, and that's simply because you have a Bluetooth juicing S Pen at your disposal. So experiencing that 5,000 milliamp battery with this phone has been more than pleasurable to see and notice. I think this is probably the first time in a while since I had a Samsung device that I've never had to sweat battery life. And what I mean by that is, you've heard me in the past say that phones have good battery life. This phone will get you through the day. As long as the phone can get you to a charger when you actually need it, that's actually good battery life. And it is. The Z Flip 3, as I was just saying, this baby right here, this lovely device that I'm still gonna sob over when it's gone. This phone is so good still. This phone has a 3,300 milliamp battery, understandable seeing as the size of the phone. Now, I do feel like it's a little thicker than last year, or the Z Flip and Z Flip 5G, but I do feel like the phone can be a little bit thicker, and or if there is available space within the housing of this phone to increase the battery size, the Z Flip 3 still did a good job. And that's the reason why these OEMs, and I believe even Apple, has a power saving mode once it reaches low battery life, but you could probably activate it sooner than that. Using the settings on your device will get you great battery life that much more. For example, my Z Flip 3, when I take it to work, I'm not physically watching my phone, so I don't need to have 120 hertz running while I'm using it to just listen to content. So I use power saving mode to lessen the CPU usage and lessen the screen brightness and cut back to 60 hertz because I'm not utilizing any of that while I'm at work. So for my Z Flip 3, having power saving mode on while I'm at work saves me that much more battery life, and I am comfortable driving home or getting to the car sometimes and having to plug into a charger, or making it home and then plugging it into a charger. That's still good battery life because with the features provided, you can maximize your battery life. The nice thing about, wow, I got a little dark in here once the sun went down a little bit. Once I now experience having a 5,000 milliamp battery in this S22 Ultra, I experience more than excellent battery life, because with this 5,000 milliamp battery, on day 1, I only had this on the charger for a couple hours to get it to 100% while setting apps up. Took it off the charger, took it to work. It lasted for the 12 hours at like 16% left or something like that. Like, I was flabbergasted, in the words of T.I., that the battery was going to actually do that well on the first day. I had just under 3 hours of screen on time. Day 2, I was on, so day one, I was on mobile data. Basically, the rest, once I took it off for full charge. Day two, I was on Wi-Fi all day, and I experienced just under 9 hours of screen on time with what 16 hours of usage, 14 to 16 hours worth of usage, just under 9 hours of screen on time. Day three, as you guys will see right here, day three, I dropped back down in screen on time, which I knew I was going to, but I still was able to get 6 hours and 45 minutes of screen on time, and still able to get somewhere around what 15, 16 hours of usage, and it's still learning my battery usage patterns. And that's a mix of from 100% to 67%. I was on Wi-Fi, and then the rest of that percentage I was on mobile data, you know, using between 5G and 4G LTE. Still made it through the day, no problems. 6 hours 45 minutes of screen on time, and the standby time was still very solid. Day four, on Wi-Fi all day again, but more usage on that Wi-Fi. 10 hours of screen on time for day four. Ooh, and now I think about it, my tweet was wrong. It's day four. Day four results, not day three. Day four, 10 hours of screen on time, just under 5 hours of standby time or screen off time, which resulted in 14 hours and 59 minutes worth of usage. And I was drawn on Pen App towards the latter end of the battery life for 3 hours, just coloring in stuff, and still did not have to run to a charger. I put this on a charger with 9% left. Now, for battery health reasons, you typically don't necessarily want your phone to always fall down to below 10, 15%, even 20% to put on the charger. But realistically, we all probably wait until the last second to put it on the charger. It actually helps the battery out a little bit more if you charge it from 30% onwards or 40, 50% onwards. And you also see and notice, even with a faster charger, that it will charge the phone faster. So day three and day four really solidified to me what it means to be able to take this phone off a charger, use it before going to work, in my case, going to work, using it for 8 to 9 hours straight, and then coming back home with plenty of battery life left to sing to the cows, to sing that horizon. Tyrone, I see you. Battery life is solid on this phone. Phones in general need to thicken up a little bit like this phone here. As you guys see, this phone is no joke in terms of being thick. Phone need to get back to being this thick and providing excellent battery life in that 5,000 milliamp range. And kudos to Samsung for really trying to push that there. We know we have third-party OEMs like an Oppo and Huawei and Xiaomi that really try to do that. Even Motorola will try to push and bump up their battery, but they don't also offer as many SKUs as Samsung does. So Samsung can kind of get away with experimenting with slightly lower battery mAh or milliamp hours and hold the big boys for the big boy itself. But I do feel like Samsung needs to incorporate that battery life with the rest of their flagship line phones, because their mid-range and lower budget phones have very solid high battery milliamp hour type usage, and those phones last a good minute. So it's like, do that with the S20X phones as well, and not just the Ultra. So that's what we want to see from Samsung going forward, is even though battery life is superb on the S22 Ultra, in my opinion, based off the results that I do and use, we want to see that going forward with the rest of their phones. We don't want to see a phone slip when it comes to battery life. So we still got to hold Samsung to account when it comes to battery life across the board. What's the next thing we're going to talk about? That S Pen. I have enjoyed using this S Pen a little bit more since using the Pinup app. I never actually opened up Pinup app, even on my tablet, and it's probably a slightly better use case scenario there with a tablet. But with the S22 Ultra and the S Pen, I was sitting here drawing, like trying to stay in the lines, taking the eraser, you know what I'm saying, make sure I get around the color just out the lines a little bit. I felt like a little kid again using this little itty bitty S Pen. And I think that's where my gripe is with the S Pen. My nitpick is that this should be a little longer and a little thicker. I like the fact that they kind of toned it down to black, which is fine. I like that you can get addicted clicking in the button, and that the button does reside or resemble the color of the phone overall. But this needed to be a little bigger. The button needs to be a little bit, well, no, the button's actually fine, but I guess the button would be bigger with the S Pen being slightly bigger. When you think of this area, they could have fit in a bigger phone, in my humble opinion, a bigger pen. But using it has been fun. That's what I use to draw on my little screenshots for battery life and all that type of stuff, sending screenshots. I think using Smart Select on here is a little bit better than on the tablet, since this is your on-the-go device. So if you're watching something, it's easier to hit Smart Select, select that, and send it to somebody, or create a GIF. I think it's a little easier on the phone to do that than your tablet, unless you spend more of your time on your tablet. But for the phone experience, this S Pen, along with this beast mode of an Ultra device, they go well in handy. I haven't noticed any battery drain issues or battery life issues, because it's usually housed. And that's the other thing that I want to talk about when it comes to S Pen, is that I don't have to use it as often. And of course, it's the first 3-4 days, so it makes sense. But I don't have to use it as often as I thought I was going to. And of course, that usage can get more down the line. But I think with the S Pen, most people probably don't use the S Pen as often as they would like. And that's just because it's easier to maneuver on the phone with just your fingers and your hands. And when you need to, oh, you know, I do have an S Pen, whoop, whop out and take it out. Or of course with the quick notes, the screen off memo, which I like. When the screen is off, you take the S Pen out, it activates screen off memo. You can write yourself a note real quick and then stash it away. The only thing is with that, I agree with Chris Perillo. You have to remember to then go check your notes to see what that is. Now, somebody in his stream did say that, or you can use it for, like, if you need to jot down some grocery items or a list of items real quick. And that is very true. I guess that also depends on how do you go about that process already, and does screen off memo make that easier and more convenient for you, or is it you already using a pre-made app like a to-do list app, Keep Notes? Maybe you already use Samsung Notes and you have your own kind of list folder. Is that more convenient for you than screen off memo? But I think screen off memo is convenient when you need to jot down some stuff, especially if someone's giving you some information on the fly, or you just need to get the information real quick and then you can put it into your phone later. You out and about having fun, you need somebody's number real quick, you write it down and then program their number into your phone at another time. I think that's where screen off memo really comes in handy with devices that have built-in S Pens or styluses. And I think for Samsung, maintaining that identity with who they are, their culture that they've developed with their phones, maintaining that with now the S line was a very smart idea to consolidate and combine their devices with the Note and the S line to make a very solid device in the S22 Ultra. What's the next thing we're going to talk about? The design and quality of the phone. Now, disclaimer, all my thumbnails that you've seen for this phone so far, including the images that I had in my day 2 quick review video, were all shot with the Z Flip 3. So anybody want to try to knock the Z Flip 3's camera quality, you guys probably see how solid those photos are. And I used those just using photo mode. I didn't use pro mode. That was just straight photo, set up the image and shoot it. So anybody sleeping on the Z Flip 3, time to wake up. That being said, you can tell by those images that the quality of the S22 Ultra is top notch. That's what we know Samsung to be for. Their display quality is insane. The fact that you can get Quad HD Plus on here. We're making our way to 4K. And it's interesting because when I watch YouTube, it will default to scale up to 4K. It won't even stop at like QHD. It scales all the way up to 4K because the screen is almost kind of native. It's like a downscale 4K, if you will, very loosely. But that's my usage when I'm watching YouTube, is 4K. Even at work, if I decide to watch something on my break, it's in 4K. Have y'all seen those Star Wars The Old Republic cinematic trailer videos? What? Watching them in 4K on this device has been solid. The build quality is great. I have not had any issues with accidental touches because of the curved waterfall-esque display, and that's because, as I've explained, the railing of the phone, or the frame of the phone, is built in such a way that heightens the display, so that way your fingers naturally still rest on the frame and you're not touching the curved display. And Samsung may, to their credit, have already built in edge touch to some degree with the edge display, with the edge of the display. So when you're using the phone and holding it and grabbing it, you don't accidentally touch anything. Now, in my experience, in the 3 to 4 days, it's now Friday, I got the phone Monday, so technically it should be some level of a 5-day, but you know, the way time works, I have not had any accidental touches, which is very, very good, and that's what I like to see out of this phone. A lot of worries that people had. A lot of times I like to come in and see if I can debuff some of that. And most of the time I can, because most people just be acting funny when it comes to battery life and curved edges. And I won't lie, when I had the S7 Edge, I had more of an issue there. And that's probably where I may have had edge touch, now that I think about it, was the S7 Edge, because I believe, but I also feel like Good Lock was made during like the S10e days. Or the maybe it was the S8 that I had, because the S8 also, I believe, had curved edges. Maybe that's where I got to start off with Good Lock and or the edge touch. I still can't quite put my finger on it. But in terms of S22 Ultra, the design, the build quality, the S Pen lacks quality, but the display and the quality of the phone overall is top notch, including the camera rings on the back. And segueing into the cameras are also solid. Again, I've only taken a few pictures and I haven't been disappointed with the pictures. I'm not going to get into a lot of the technical aspects of the different photos or techniques or things to look for in a photo, because most people aren't paying attention to that. What people are paying attention to is whether or not they can get a good shot from this phone, and they did a good job with the S22 Ultra, well, really all three phones, but especially the Ultra, actually upgrading the cameras physically and through software, allowing all of the rear cameras to be used in Expert RAW and in Pro Video and Pro Photo mode, I believe, that's within the regular camera app. And nightography can be used with all the cameras, including some version of nightography on the front facing camera, which is a 40 megapixel. So that's the amazing part about these cameras. You get a 10 times optical zoom, which is very handy because a lot of people do like to zoom in, and the fact that this phone will give you the ability to zoom in at 3 times and 10 times comfortably and get sharp photos is exactly what we want to see when it comes to our phones these days, especially in 2022, and paying a good amount of money, $1,200, of course, depending on your trade-in situations and all that, or upgrade situations. But if you come out of pocket $1,200 for this device, and you can still zoom in comfortably past 10 times, of course, 100 times is going to be not as good, but it's still doable. You can still explain, and people can see what's going on in the fully zoomed in 100 times zoom photos that you can take with the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. Now, the one complaint I have about the body, jumping back to that real quick, I won't even say it's a complaint, it's more of a nitpick, is that the camera, the power button is right in the place where I typically reach down to grab my phone. So when I go to grab my phone, I'm always around here, and I just happen to be, I always place my hand, my finger, at that, it's my index finger right on the power button when picking it up from a table. It's a little bit harder to seem like to try to aim for the lower, like I want to say half to lower half of the phone. You just expect to pick more of the phone up from a table, and I always grab the power button. So could they have raised it a little bit more and made it just a little bit closer to the volume rocker? They could have. I don't think it would have been a good idea, which I'm glad they didn't do it, is raising both sections a little bit higher, because then you got to try to inch your hand up to try to reach the volume rocker. But the power button is in a great place when you're holding the phone regularly, but it's just picking up the phone, the power button can kind of get in the way, which is it's an interesting nitpick, but I'm definitely not mad at it at all. So I don't even want to put that out there. But in terms of the overall usage of the phone, including software, Software has been impeccably great. As I said, the software is what will complement the battery life, what will complement the design of the phone, will complement the camera quality as well, and will complement your ability to navigate and use the phone. Samsung's One UI experience is top notch, easily top 2. Like, you can almost, if you like the fact that they at least give you the features and the features don't get in the way of you using the phone, you can easily place Samsung at number 1 or number 2 when it comes to software, in my opinion. To me, iOS from a software perspective is too light or too easygoing. So for me, iOS falls third, with Samsung and Google interchanging between 1 and 2. But I like what Samsung provides when it comes to the software experience. Excuse me. So I really like the fact that not only has it lightened up, because we know what TouchWiz used to be, but One UI is very, very smooth, and it's more cohesive to their overall vision for their products, including the tablets. And interestingly enough, switching over to Google Wear OS for the mobile devices like the Galaxy Watches, you still see that cohesion with the Google implemented and integrated apps like Google Duo and Google Messages being the standard messaging app on Samsung devices now, with Samsung's flavor mixed in there. It doesn't take away from the experience of using essentially Google Messages, but Messages. It doesn't take away from being able to use your phone and still be able to get in touch with the people you need to, whether it's, okay, everything is starting to act funny now. Whether it's, messaging your friends, phone calls speakers are fine, Duo is fine, the speaker quality itself is fine. Interacting with other people with this phone when it comes to that software is super solid. That is what you want to see in a phone in the S22 Ultra. It is Ultra indeed, and I can highly recommend this device. As I said, this is a rough draft review. This is me kind of summing up everything based off the last 4 to 5 days I've actually had the phone and used it. Some quirks are with other apps that I'm using, such as like Good Lock, allowing you to have this new app drawer, but the vision or the direction that it initially has shown us, it's a little bit confusing and wonky in terms of being able to interact with it. But that has nothing to do with the phone. That has something to do with why did you decide to make that the option for the app drawer list. But I'll get into that in another video. That is it for this video. Hope you guys appreciate and enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comment section below if you guys want to see more, of course, content from this phone. I will do my due diligence to do a camera test video, shooting with camera mode and then shooting with expert raw, and maybe I'll make those 2 separate videos. It doesn't really matter, but I want to try to do a camera test showing some things from this phone for you guys, that way you guys can also see the quality yourself and make that decision. But let me know if there's any other things that you guys want to be on the lookout for, or do you guys plan on grabbing the S22 Ultra, the S22, the S22 Plus? Are you happy with your current Samsung device? Are you thinking about coming over to the Samsung Fold? Let me know down in the comment section below. But again, as always, if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys can like the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so that way you never miss my videos. So you can sit back, and see what's cracking. With your man Micah signing out until the next video. Wait for